Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Lake County. I'm Cynthia Snavely, the interim.
We want to
and Pete and Dustin, who are working their magic in the tech booth. Thank you also to our pianist, Terry Sullivan, providing our music tonight. And thank you for your hard work in making this Christmas Eve service possible. Dustin and Pete, can we greet those joining us on Zoom tonight? And a special welcome also to all who are visiting with us live tonight. We are delighted to have you with us. Area and want more information about the congregation, be sure you sign in with our greeters. Give us your email and check the box on the form if you want emails from us. That way we can keep you posted about upcoming events. And be sure to help yourself to literature on the table in the narthex. Beginning in the new year, on Sunday, January 7th, our discussion time will move to 10 a.m. and our worship time to 11:30. This is so that I may be live at both my congregations here and in Summerfield on Sunday morning. We acknowledge that we are privileged to gather here tonight upon the traditional lands of the Timucua Native peoples. We recognize Indigenous individuals and communities who live among us now. In offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous sovereignty, history, and experiences. We live in part on what we have taken from others. With that acknowledgement, may we find ways to give back when and where we can. And I believe our lighter is not with us.
Not with us, okay, so I will need a lighter.
Well, no, we need to find a lighter is what I'm saying. We don't have a lighter.
Oh, a lighter.
We have a lighter, but we don't have the lighter. I think it got put away when we were hosting a concert. Oh. Colin and Meredith Neely will light a chalice for us. I need to hold the button down.
Mine's on my home.
You can help that. Our chalice lighting words are from Mahatma Gandhi. The day the power of love overrules the love of power, the world will know peace. Let us sing together, Spirit of Life. Tonight, we will be using stories and readings from the works of the Unitarian Universalist religious educator, Sophia Lyon-Fahs. The stories are from her collection, From Long Ago in Many Lands. In another book, in 1952, she published Today's Children and Yesterday's Heritage, outlining her philosophy of creative religious development through experiential learning. She retired at the young age of 88 and died at the age of 101. Our centering words are from her, from Sophia Lyon-Fahs. The religious way is the deep way, the way that sees what physical eyes alone fail to see, the intangibles at the heart of every phenomenon. The religious way is the way that touches universal relationships, that goes high, wide, and deep, that expands the feeling of kinship. We will sing a number of carols tonight. I'll ask you to stand as you're comfortable, only for the first and the last. All the others, please feel free to stay seated. We'll be singing only the first verse of most of them, except for Silent Night as we end. Our first carol is O Come All Ye Faithful. Please stand as you're comfortable. Please be seated. We have one replacement reader for our readers tonight. Val Rosado is not able to join us to read. Bernie Greenberg will be reading in her place. Our first readers will be reading from The Birth of Jesus, a story from Palestine, in From Long Ago in Many Lands, Stories for Children Told Anew, Sophia Lyon-Fahs.
Yes, your turn, darling.
The Birth of Jesus, a story from Palestine. 2,000 years ago, Jesus was born in Palestine, far across the sea. Late one afternoon, as Mary sat in her garden, she thought she saw someone unlike anyone she had ever seen before. He had flown like a bird with wings down into her garden and was standing before her. A light beamed from his face, and his garment shone with the beautiful colors of the rainbow. Happy woman, said the angel. He called her by name. Mary, he said, you will soon have a child. He shall be a boy, and you shall name him Jesus. When he is grown, he shall be a king. His kingdom shall never be destroyed or come to an end.
Thank you.
Next carol.
Months passed by. The baby that rested in Mary's body had grown almost, but not quite, large enough to be born. Just at this time, an order came from the governor saying that Mary and Joseph, her husband, would have to go to the town of Bethlehem to take care of the taxes. This meant a journey of 3 or 4 days. At last, late one evening, the hard journey was almost over. Without delay, they went to the well-known Bethlehem Inn and asked for a room. But the inn was already crowded with people. At last, Joseph found a small place that was but half a room, built against a hillside and open to the road. In it were 2 cows munching hay from the mangers in front of them. The night was not far gone when Mary was wakened. She knew the time had come for her baby to be born. Joseph arose and busied himself at once to make her as comfortable as possible. But where would he put the new baby when it came? There was no time to spare. He looked at one of the cows mangered on the floor near Mary's bed. This would have to be the crib.
Away in a manger, no crib for his bed. Jesus lay down his sweet head. The stars in the sky looked down where they lay, and prayed that Jesus in my hay.
Now that very night, in an open field out on a hillside a mile or so from the town, a few shepherds were sitting around a blazing fire. Some were sleeping, while others kept sharp watch of every moving thing on the hillside, lest a wolf or a bear sneak up in the dark and climb the wall into the sheepfold. But it was not a wolf or bear that surprised these shepherds that night. A shining angel suddenly flew down from the sky and lit on the ground beside them. On seeing him, the shepherds screamed with fright. "Be not afraid," said the angel softly, "for I have come to bring you good news that will make glad all the peoples of the world. This night a child has been born in Bethlehem. He's going to be the great person we have all been hoping would someday free your nation and bring you peace. This child shall be your king." While the angel was still speaking to the shepherds, the sky began to glow with light. I agree. Instead, one angel, there appeared high in the sky many angels, and all began singing together. The beautiful chorus seemed to fill the whole wide sky, and the words of the angel's song sounded clear and strong. Glory to God in the highest. Glory to God in the highest, the angel sang, and on earth peace and goodwill will fall among all people.
Lovers farewell, the angels did say, was this earth lived she on a cold winter's night that was so deep. Noel, 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 Noel. Lord is the King of Israel.
In a country far off, 3 wise men were sitting together upon the roof of their house, looking up at the stars in the sky. Night after night for years, they had been studying the skies in the same way. These wise men, many of the stars were like old friends to them. They knew all the stars that always stayed in clusters, and they knew equally well those other stars, or planets, as we call them, that move more quickly and alone across the sky. That night, as the 3 wise men were sitting on the roof watching the sky, they saw a new bright star where they had never seen such a star before. What can this star mean, they asked. Something important has just happened somewhere on Earth. What can it be? Where has it happened? I know, said one of the wise men finally. A child has been born who is going to be a very great and good man. Now, when the men felt sure that this had happened, their next thought was that they must go at once to Palestine to search for this child until they found him. That very night, each one of the 3 men decided on the kind of present they would take to the new baby. Strange as it seems, when the men reached the town of Bethlehem, the stars seemed to stop moving and to hang still in the sky just over the little town. And stranger still, the star seemed to hang directly over a certain house on a certain street. The 3 wise men believed they'd found the right place, knocked on the door, and Joseph welcomed them in. Immediately, on seeing the little babe lying in his mother's arms, the 3 men fell on their knees before them to thank God. One by one, each pulled from the bag hanging to his belt a gift that they had brought. The first gave the baby a piece of gold. The second pulled out a package of incense that would make it smell sweet when it was burned. The third gave the baby some perfume. This, then, is the old wonder tale about the birth of Jesus. What really happened, no one can know now. We do know, however, that this child of Mary and Joseph never became a king, nor did he ever wish to become a king. He was a teacher who traveled from town to town, teaching people how to live and what being good and doing right ought to mean. There are a great many people who think that Jesus was greater than any king who ever lived. They think Jesus was great and good.
Oh, little town of Bethlehem, how did we see thee lie? About thy sleep and dreamless sleep, the silent stars go by. Yet in the dark street shine the everlasting One, the hopes and fears of all the years are but in thee tonight.
Our second set of readers will be reading from The Birth of Buddha, a story from India, again, from long ago in many lands, Sophia Lyons Boz.
This is the wonder tale about the birth of Buddha. It's an older story than the one about the birth of Jesus. Buddha's mother was a queen who lived in a grand palace in the faraway country of India. It was summertime, and for almost a week, the king and queen had been celebrating with all the people of their land. It was the annual summer festival. At the end of the last day of the festival, the tired queen went to her own room and lay down on her couch to rest. Soon she was fast asleep and dreaming. She dreamed that 4 beautiful, strong angels were lifting her up from the couch and carrying her off. Higher and higher they flew until they were near the top of a very great mountain. The angels showed her a palace gleaming with gold, and they led her up the marble steps. They showed her through one beautiful room after another until finally she came to a bedroom that seemed to have been made just for her. In her dream, she heard the angels tell her to lie down on the couch to rest. Presently, she saw a pure white elephant quietly enter the room. Gentle as an angel he seemed as he came up to her couch and stood beside her. On the end of his trunk, he carried a large lotus flower, white as the cleanest snow, and he gave it to the queen. At that very moment that the queen took the flower, the room was filled with a heavenly light. In her dreams, she heard a terrific earthquake. Even the deaf heard the great roar. The blind were suddenly able to see. People who were unable to speak began at once to talk to each other. Lame persons rose from their beds and walked. Beautiful music was heard everywhere. Even the wild animals became gentle. None roared or howled or frightened children. The next morning, the queen told the king her dream, and he asked his 64 counselors what it meant. And they said, "Do not be anxious, O king. The dream is a good one. Your queen is going to have a baby boy. When he is grown, this child will be either a king in your place, or he will become a great teacher who will teach the people of many countries to know what they do not now understand. He will free them from their evil ways and lead them to live in peace."
So speak joy to the world. Sorry. That's okay.
The Lord is come. Let earth receive the King. Let every heart prepare Him. And heaven and nature sing. And heaven and nature sing. And heaven and nature sing.
Months afterward, when the good Queen Maya realized that her baby would soon be born, she said to her husband, "O king, I wish to go to the city of my parents." Since the king wished to please his queen, he consented and ordered that her royal chair be made ready for her. He chose the strongest and best of his servants to take her safely to her mother's home. The royal procession had gone but halfway to the queen's former home when they passed a most beautiful park. On catching sight of the masses of flowers among the trees, Maya the queen insisted that they must get down out of her chair and spend a while walking through the grove. She wanted to stand under the trees and to breathe in the sweet perfume of the flowers. Queen Maya walked into the beautiful grove. She felt like singing with the birds that flitted about her. She had never before seen a lovelier spot. A whole hour passed, but it seemed scarcely more than a few moments. Queen Maya began to feel that her baby was soon going to be born. Quickly a couch was prepared for her and a curtain thrown around her. When the baby was born, 4 angels appeared holding in their hands the 4 corners of a golden net. Into this net the baby was laid as if in a cradle. The angels spoke sweetly to the mother and said, "Be joyful, O lady, a mighty son is born to you." Presently 4 kings stood beside the 4 angels, and the angels gave the newborn child into the hands of the 4 kings. They in turn laid the child down on an antelope skin that was soft to the touch. Before long, the mother thought she saw her babe lift himself up on his feet. He stood for a moment and looked around in all directions. He even took 1 step and another until he had walked 4 steps. All the while, 1 angel held a white umbrella over him, and the other angels laid garlands of flowers before him. Then the child lay down again upon his antelope blanket and soon fell asleep, just like any other small baby. As servants carried the mother and babe back to the palace, angels sang above them in the sky. The king, hearing the strange music, ran to meet his queen, and the king called his son's name, Siddhartha Gautama. The young child never did become king. When he was old enough to choose for himself, he decided there was something more important for him to do than be a king. So in the darkness of night, the young prince fled from the palace, walking from town to town, begging for food in the streets, sleeping in the woods. He hunted for people he thought to be wise. He asked them questions. He also spent hours alone in the shade of the forest thinking. So it came about after some years that this young man became wiser than those who tried to teach him. Even today, the name of this man is honored every day by millions of people. But he is not called by the name his father gave him. He is called the Buddha. This name means the man with a light. But the light that Buddha had was no ordinary light. His light was for the heart and for the mind. Buddha's light is the light of truth.
It came upon the midnight clear, that glorious song of old, from angels standing near the earth to touch their hearts of gold. These all the earth will to be from hands of gracious King. The world in silent stillness lay to hear the
Tonight's offering will be used to begin a minister's discretionary fund. This fund will be used to assist congregants with monetary needs with which they need some assistance, such as help with a medical bill or with gas to get to work or to doctor's appointments. Please feel free to call me if you are struggling with a particular need. And thank you for your generosity in beginning this fund this evening. Thank you. Our last readers will be reading from The Birth of Confucius, a story from China, again and from long ago in many lands.
The man who became the father of Confucius was called Kung the Tall because he towered head and shoulders above everyone else in the village. Kung the Tall was living in China when the Buddha was born. When this story begins, Kung the Tall was an old man. As he thought back over the years of his long life, he knew he ought to feel contented. He had been honored for his bravery as a soldier. He had been ruler of the people of his district. He had a faithful wife and a large family of 9 children. He had enough money so that he could live comfortably, and he was highly respected by all who knew him. But Kung the Tall had one wish that had never come true. All of his children were girls, and Kung the Tall had no son to be company to him or to carry on his family name. But now the old man had a new wife, beautiful and young. Perhaps even yet, Kung the Tall might have a boy child. He had not given up hope, and all his neighbors and all his friends were also hoping. If Kung the Tall does have a son, the child will someday be a great man. This is what everyone was saying. This is what everyone was wishing for. None wished harder than Kung's young wife. Kung's young wife made her wish into a prayer. She even climbed to the top of a high mountain to make her prayer. Kung's wife returned home and waited patiently week after week. Before long, she could feel the baby moving inside her body. She was so happy. One evening, as she was sitting alone in the garden in the dimness of the moonlight, she had a surprising dream. She saw a little animal coming toward her. It was not a goat, nor was it a sheep or a dog. The animal's body shone. Its tail spread out like a fan, and on its head was one upturned horn. Its tail spread out like a fan, but it could not have been a unicorn. Surely only storybooks such as these animals have never been seen. Kung's wife threw a silk scarf over the animal's one horn just to see if it was real. And yes, it was there, and it had in its mouth a long piece of jade. Kung's wife wondered. The unicorn came closer until Kung's wife could reach out her hand and take the stone tablet from its mouth. Her hands trembled as she tried to read the words that had been carved into the jade. A son of great spirit is to be born. Someday he shall rule the land of Shou as a good and a wise king.
Not many weeks after this longed for day came. It was evening. Kung the Tall and his young wife were waiting for the final moment when their child would be born. In the garden, some of their friends were also waiting. Then they had a surprise. High above, they saw two great dragons curling their long snake-like bodies in and out among the clouds. Their fiery eyes turned this way and that, as if they were watching the people on the earth. Said one of the waiting friends, "Surely these good dragons are keeping watch over the Blessed Mother and over the child about to be born." And beside the two long, fiery-eyed dragons, 5 old but wondrous men appeared in the sky, walking upon the clouds. Said one of the waiting friends, "These 5 old men of the sky are the 5 immortals who never die. They have come down from the 5 planets to celebrate the birth of this great child." And beside the 2 long, fiery-eyed dragons, and beside 5 old men from the 5 planets, there also appeared also in the sky, among the soft clouds, 5 musicians with pipes and harps in their hands, playing wondrous music and singing as they played. The words came down from the sky like the ringing of a clear bell. "This night a child is born. He shall be a great king who shall make good laws and help people do right." As Kung the Tall and his young wife fondled their child, a strange writing seemed to show on the child's breast. 5 Chinese characters. What could they mean? Wiser ones than the king. Wiser ones than Kung the Tall were called into the room to read the writing. They were amazed when they saw the characters, for the words on the child's body were those of the heavenly song. "This night a child is born. He shall be a great king who shall make good laws and help people do right." So this is the very old story of the birth of Confucius. Kung Putze, the Chinese say, meaning Kung, the master, or Kung, the teacher. This Chinese boy of long ago did not become a king. Instead, he taught other people how to rule their people wisely. Confucius also taught that being able to rule oneself was more important than ruling others. Even now, millions of Chinese still honor Confucius and follow his teachings. All over the world, he is regarded as one of the wisest and greatest teachers who has ever lived.
Our next song is from our Teal hymnal. The words are by Sophia Lyon Foss, the religious educator whose words we're using tonight. I will be reading portions of her words and then you will sing a response. And I made an error in when I said the lyrics. Repeat first line of the response. For so the children come, and so they have been coming. Always in the same way they come, born of the seed of man and woman. Sorry, there's music with us. Thank you. I see somebody actually corrected my mistake. No angels herald their beginnings. No prophets predict their future courses. No wise men see a star to show where to find the babe that will save humankind. Yet each night a child is born is a holy night. Fathers and mothers sitting beside their children's cribs feel glory in the sight of a new life beginning. They ask, where and how will this new life end? Or will it ever end? Each night a child is born is a holy night. A time for singing, a time for wondering, a time for worshiping. Each night a child is born is a holy night. Each night a child is born is a holy night, a time for singing, a time for wondering, a time for worshiping. Each night a child is born is a holy night, a time for singing, a time for wondering, a time for worshiping. Each night a child is born is a holy night. As I said before, I have been using stories and readings from the Unitarian Universalist religious educator Sophia Lyon Foss tonight. She tells what she calls wonder stories of 3 miraculous births of men who were proclaimed to become king, none of whom did. She declares all of them great teachers, and I think suggests that as such, they had more influence over the world than any king ever had. As teachers, they taught peace in an age in which a good part of what kings did was wage war. She was a teacher herself, a religious educator. She did not claim to be of the same caliber as Jesus or the Buddha or Confucius. But she knew she could learn from each of them and that she herself had something to teach. Foz wrote, "The religious way is the deep way, the way with a growing perspective and an expanding view. It is the way that dips into the heart of things, into personal feelings, yearnings, and hostilities that often must be buried and despised and left misunderstood. The religious way is the way that sees what physical eyes alone fail to see, the intangibles of the heart at the heart of every phenomenon. The religious way is the way that touches universal relationships, that goes high, wide, and deep, that expands the feelings of kinship. And if God symbolizes or means these larger relationships, the religious way means finding God, but the word in itself is not too important. It is the enlarged and deepening experiences that bring the growing insights and that create the sustaining ambition to find life and find it abundantly that really count most. When such a religious quality of exploration is the goal, any subject, any phenomenon, anything, animate or inanimate, human or animal, may be the starting point. And so tonight we take as our starting point on this night's spiritual quest, wonder stories of the births of great teachers, stories of dragons and unicorns and angels, stories of men whose greatness was not won by the sword as so often the kings are, but by their words and how those words touched people's hearts. Sometimes it is not words, but pictures that tell a story. On December 13th, Gil Zohar of Religion Unplugged published an article about a creche at a Lutheran church this year in Bethlehem. He wrote, "A church in the West Bank city of Bethlehem has politicized its annual nativity scene, laying a figure of baby Jesus amid the rubble of a destroyed masonry building to represent the Gaza Strip this Christmas season. This is what Christmas looks like in Palestine," Reverend Dr. Munther Ishak, the pastor of the Evangelical Lutheran Christmas Church, told Al Jazeera, explaining that his creche featuring building debris was a gesture of solidarity with Gaza's beleaguered civilians caught between Hamas gunmen and Israeli defense forces. Christmas is the solidarity of God with those who are oppressed, with those who are suffering. And if Jesus is to be born again this time this year, he will be born in Gaza under the rubble in solidarity with the people of Gaza, Ishak said. Our hope is in our faith. Our hope is in our resilience. So while Christmas celebrations are canceled, Christmas prayers are not canceled. And maybe when we look at the image of Jesus under the rubble, we see a light of hope and life coming out of destruction, life coming out of death. When we tell the birth story of Jesus, there is a traditional part we often skip from the Christian Gospel of Matthew. When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious, and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi. Then what was said through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. A voice is heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted because they are no more. There are wars between Hamas and Israel, between Ukraine and Russia, civil war in Sudan. But the teachers who would not be kings have told us that peace is the way. From Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. From the Buddha, conquer the angry one by love. Conquer the ill-natured one by goodness. Conquer the miser with generosity. Conquer the liar with truth. And from Confucius, when music and courtesy are better understood and appreciated, there will be no war. On this holy night, may we, believers and non-believers, find the peace these teachers taught, the peace they say the angels sang. For as Sophia Lyon Faz said, life becomes religious whenever we make it so, when some new light is seen, when some deeper appreciation is felt, when some larger outlook is gained, when some nobler purpose is formed, when some task is well done. May in this way, peace begin in us. May it be so. Before we extinguish our chalice, and we take a light, our chalice extinguishing words are from 20th century American author and theologian Howard Thurman. When the song of angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flock, then the work of Christmas begins, to find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among the peoples, to make music in the heart. We will end our service with the singing of Silent Night. I'll ask you to stand as you're comfortable. We'll light our candles as we sing. Please tip the unlit candle toward the lit one and not the other way around for safety's sake. Let us sing together, Silent Night.
Lord.